Just to bring everybody up to speed here on your stats. So you have 22 franchises plus 2 company-owned locations, and you guys are across 16 states. That's really impressive. That's fantastic. Let's talk about what makes Spoiled Rotten Photography unique, because there's probably people out there that maybe are interested in being part of your franchise system, and they're probably thinking, okay, it's photography. Like, what does Melissa do that's so different? So would you mind sharing the why and how you guys are different?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks so much for that. So I think that our biggest differentiator is equality. If you look at our school pictures, they are amazing. Like parents look at them and they're like, these are school pictures. We used to have a little thing on our brochure that went out that says, you don't even have to tell people these are school pictures if you don't want to, because the quality is so good. Like we have really made that our cornerstone. That's what we compete on is quality. But the other side of that is if you ask any teacher or school what picture day is like, they will roll their eyes and say, picture day. It's disruptive. It's just crazy. Like we hate it. So we coined the phrase Happy Picture Day and have made our own celebration out of Picture Day. So we want it to be joyful, happy, organized. So just changing the narrative of one, what a school picture looks like, and 2, the experience that the schools have.
Right.
Pulling those two things together, I think, has just been really popular.
That's so important. I would imagine me not knowing anything about it, just from what I remember being a kid, is that it sounds like it would be like herding cats.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I pulled back some of my school pictures and I was like, oh.
Now, what about somebody like myself that doesn't have any photography experience other than my iPhone? Am I somebody that could be a franchisee? Like, how can you make somebody like me a franchise owner?
Well, less than half of our owners were photographers before they started.
Okay.
Can I tell you a secret?
Go ahead.
I prefer that.
Okay. Why?
Just because they don't have any preconceived notions of what it's supposed to be like. I can train them on exactly how we want them to do it. Now, don't get me wrong. I love our photographers, the people that have converted their studios to Spoiled Rotten. I love them and they're great. I shouldn't say anything. There's nothing bad about them, but I would say it's a little easier to train the people that haven't already been doing it. You just have to love children, be able to follow a process, be physically able to do it, and then we can teach you. We like to say, if you're hungry, humble, and smart, we got you.
I love it. I get that. And I can relate that to my business, because I used to say that my sports business was a blessing and curse. And like similar to what you're saying, the blessing was that in my business, it was sports, so people liked it and they knew something about it. The curse was they knew something about it. So they had a preconceived notion on what they thought it should be run. And my best franchisees were people that did not have tremendous amount of sports experience. They had more of a business acumen. And I would imagine you're a franchise owner, so you're training them on how to do the photography your way. What are some of the traits, though? I want to hear like a day in the life. I have an idea of what they probably do, but I would love to know, what are the traits a franchisee needs to have to be successful?
I would think the biggest thing is just the persistence and the stick-to-itness is the big thing. But we would love for them to have a little bit of sales DNA, like just be able to present themselves in a way that they can create relationships. And of course, they have to 100% like working with kids, because if you're going to enjoy what you're doing, please pick another concept, right?
Right.
So that's the biggest thing, is just loving kids, being able to follow a process, and then actually doing it. Just, making sure that you follow the steps that we put before you.
Okay. Is the model strictly mobile, or is there a brick and mortar version?
Right. We are 100% home based. So our margins are fantastic. In the early years, we've had photographers or franchise owners are like, hey, I want to open this location. I'm like, okay, let's run the numbers. And then they're like, quickly, oh, maybe we should just stay mobile. Yeah, I think we should stay mobile.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. The magic of your business is that you go to the people instead of them coming to you. You can service so many more people when you go to them.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to schools where a typical preschool between 60 and 120. Typically, I would say that most of them are at 120 kids, some of the larger ones up to 250, and an average of about 120 people that you're going to. Like, there's your subjects right there.
Right. Is it strictly preschools, or does it expand beyond that?
Okay, great question. So we started out just with preschools, but here's what happens is the preschoolers grow up and then they get into elementary schools and the parents are like, what are these pictures? So we have a lot of requests to do in elementary schools. So that has been the biggest add-on. So when we start the franchises out, we start as owner operators, and they're typically in preschools. And then as they get more experience, we want them to grow their teams. And once they start growing their teams, they can take on other types of volume work like school. So I think the biggest sector that we're going into right now is we love elementary school yearbook because it's just an easy add-on. The parents already know us from the preschools and it's great margins. And I just, it's just an easy add-on for once you start building your team.
And how do we overcome as a franchisee the challenge of, a franchisee walking into a preschool or elementary school and saying, we already have a photographer? How do you help them navigate that?
Well, everybody already has a photographer.
Exactly.
So it's so much different now. We have like a systematic kind of high-tech way to get in. In the beginning, it was just like, hey, show up with a box of donuts and say, hi, I'm Melissa. Can I take your pictures?
By the way, that's how we got fields too back in the day for our softball, for our sports leagues.
Absolutely. Right. So you can't underestimate the power of just a relationship.
Yeah.
Like being a part of your community and knowing people is so important. But I think that once you show them the difference and how joyful the session can be and how much your parents are going to love you because the portraits are amazing, we're just redefining the whole thing and being able to bring that to a school, especially a local school. You can walk in and say, hey, I'm a local photographer, but look, I've got my stuff together. I've got all these processes and procedures. I can give you everything that the big box guys are providing. Plus, you're supporting a local photographer. And here I am. You have a problem, you call me. It's been very, very, very popular.
That's great. So now let's go back to you, the leadership, and where you plan on, how you want to take the company. You've got 22 franchises. You guys are growing. And I'm curious to know, since you are so system and process oriented, which is fantastic, you just fly by the seat of your pants like some of us did, admittedly. How and when, Melissa, do you think or do you not want to scale more quickly in growth?
Yes.
I want to kind of hear your thoughts on strategy.
Well, we have figured it out, Frank. We've figured out, I feel like we're right at the tipping point. We are ready to grow. We are ready to take this thing all across the United States. But I'm an engineer. I'm not a salesperson. I am processes and procedures and operations. So just in complete transparency, we've kind of struggled finding the right people in the right locations. So very interested in adding people that share our core values. And I think that that's one reason that our growth has been slower than most is, well, one, we're mom and popping it to death. Like we haven't really hired anybody to do anything. We're doing it ourselves. Yes, but we're ready. We think this could revolutionize school pictures nationwide.
Cool. How big is the leadership team?
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
We have a small but mighty team of 4. Plus, we actually partner with our software provider guys. So we own our own software, which is really cool because when we see something that could improve automation or make things more efficient, we can just call him up and he's vested. He owns part of the company too. So, he's very interested in doing things for us. So we're small but mighty, but we're ready to add.
Nice. And what is your vision for the company? You mentioned nationwide. Do you have goals in mind or milestones that you'd like to hit over a certain number of years? Getting to the 50 number, or how far out do you want to get to that magical 100 franchise locations?
Yeah, so I've always thought that my magic number was 50, but after listening to you, I'm like, okay, I need 100. No, maybe you need 1,000.
More problems happen with more locations, I
know, like having 10 locations versus 20, completely different.
Yeah. It's sort of though, like when you have kids, like, going from 1 to 2. Now we only have 2, but I've heard, once you go from 2 to 3, you're outnumbered anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But my personal experience was, going from 1 to 10 or 1 to 20, that's huge, right? I think really once you clear 20 and you're in that 20 to 50 range, it kind of still feels the same. You're still going to need obviously to add more infrastructure than 4 people. Yes. As you go along the lines. But I thinking back to my company, internally, we didn't look a whole lot different from 20 to 50. Once you start getting north of 50, it starts getting interesting. You add, and then once you get, 100 is really, you keep hearing this number, the 100 franchise locations, you keep hearing time and time again in the industry for a few reasons. One, that's generally the number when we become royalty sufficient. Right. In your case, you guys sounds like to be really high margins. You're going to be okay. You might get there before then. I don't know your numbers and I don't want to dive into the FDD for the purpose of the podcast. But then the other thing when you're north of 100 is you are definitely among the elite in that, 84% of all franchisors never get to 100 locations. But sometimes that's also the objective of the franchisor, that they don't want to get to 100 or they don't need to get to 100. But, getting to 100 really gets you on the map in terms of if you're trying to expand like way beyond that. But I think going back, slow and steady wins the race. A lot of things I've preached on the podcast has been more like things that I do as I say, not as I did.
Well, we have definitely been slow and steady, but we've added 7 units this year. And my goal was 10.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty short, but I'm not stopping there. And we just need to add 13 next year to make up for it. But yeah, we're ready. Like, we're ready for growth. We figured out operations. We've got rock solid people working for us. So I feel like we're right at the tipping point. We just need to continue to find the right people that have the same core values and that want to blow this thing up.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.